Get a fuel cell, they said. It'll be fun, they said.
Not for me.
Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back for another video. If you're new here, I'm Aisha. I hope you consider sticking around and hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you get the notifications whenever I'm posting new videos. Today, I have something pretty exciting going on. It is the start of a redo. I plan on redoing the entire fuel system on my car, and today I'm going to be installing a new FCS fuel cell. So in today's video, I am only going to be removing the old gas tank and installing the FCS fuel cell. And you're gonna have to make sure that you're subscribed and turn on the bell notification so that you get the notification when I'm posting these other videos. Because like I said, I am redoing my entire fuel system from the back to the front, all new lines, all new products, as in fuel rail, fuel pressure regulator, everything that I have on the car that is related to fuel is going to be gone. So the FCS fuel cell that I got is a 9-gallon. They also have options for 8 gallons, 7 gallon, and then they have like the really small ones that you can put in the engine bay or like up in the front underneath the bumper. I drive my car, so I needed the biggest one that they make, which is the 9-gallon. The fuel cell comes baffled, and it also comes with a sending unit, so you can connect it right up and it will give you the readings just like the stock tank. When you're ordering, you have to specify what kind of cluster you're going to be using, because I guess that has something to do with the sending unit. I have a OEM cluster, so mine is just OEM. You have to specify the size of the fittings that you want on it. For the feed fittings, I got the -8, and for the return fitting, I got -6. I didn't really want to go too much into what I'm doing with the rest of the fuel system today, but I will say that for the lines, I've done research, and from my research, -6 hose is sufficient enough for what I'm trying to do. I currently make 593 horsepower, and with the correct fuel pump and the correct system, you can get almost up to 1,000 horsepower running -6. So I'm just gonna stick with that because I do not plan on making anything close to 1,000 horsepower. I am perfectly satisfied where I am right now. My goal was to make 550, which I surpassed that and make 593. And at this point, I'm basically trying to do things to clean up my system, like fuel system, and like I did the intercooler, just trying to clean it up to make the car more efficient, not necessarily trying to make more horsepower. All right, so let's go. I'm gonna head out in the garage and get this box open and start doing this. Alright, so first things first, I'm gonna get inside the car and disconnect everything. So I gotta remove the back seat to do that. Yes, my car used to be red, so the interior is still red. Maybe when I paint my car the next time, maybe I will paint the inside too, but I have the full interior, so it's kind of not really a necessity. Oh wow, yeah, don't do that. The gas is all there. These things are like knuckle busters. Just make sure that everything is disconnected. This plug, and these two lines disconnected. All right, so now that everything inside of the car is disconnected, we're going under the car. All right, so here under the car, there's straps that hold the tank up. Here is one of the straps and here's the other strap. So there's this bolt with this nut on it, this bolt, but before we take those down, we have to disconnect the filler hose, a breather hose here, and then this connection, and the other side of this is on the fuel tank, so we don't have to worry about that. When you are doing this, you want to make sure that your tank is not full. If it is full, it is going to be so heavy to try to get it down. This tank has probably like, it's almost on E. I was thinking about draining it out, but I don't think it's gonna be too much gas to make it actually too heavy, so I'm just gonna leave it in there. But if your tank is full, you want to drain it out before you're gonna drop it. Otherwise, it's gonna be sloshing all over and it's gonna be so heavy to try to get it down. So if you wanna drain the tank, there is a bolt on the tank that you can drain it. And I'll show you, it is right there. You can take that bolt out and drain it into something to empty it out before you're gonna drop it down. So underneath here is like so tight and confined, it's like really hard to actually get this pulled off. If I can remember the last time I took down a fuel tank, I waited till I had these straps loosened, and so the tank was dropped down a little bit, and then I was able to get my hand up in there. So I think that's what I'm actually going to try to do now, because I cannot get my hand up in there to pull it off. Now I'm gonna try to get this clamp up here off. And one more connection up here. All right, so that's disconnected. So now I'm gonna take the jack and put the jack under the tank so that the jack can support the tank when it's coming down, so that I don't have to lift it. All right, so that's there. All right, so now you're gonna need a deep socket 12 for these. You can see the tank starting to like come down. Now this is loose. So these straps actually have an anchor system, so you don't have to loosen them all the way. You just have to get them out to a certain point where this end of it can come out. So up in there, there's the hole, and this basically sits in the hole like that. And then once it's loosened out to a certain point, then you can actually just pull the whole strap out. So this is what the fuel tank looks like when it's out. And this is that filler hose. Oh my gosh, that gave me such trouble. I got probably some little cuts on my knuckles there. And then this is what you see from inside of the car, the fuel pump hanger, and this is the sender. This is what it looks like underneath the car with no fuel tank. It's pretty dirty under there. Ha. So if you're putting back in a stock tank, like if you were just dropping your tank for some reason, you could just leave these straps attached. But because I am going to be doing the FCS fuel cell, I'm going to completely remove those. So I'm gonna be honest here. I actually had a leak in my gas tank and I tried to fix it with JB Weld. Right there, there's a crack, right? And that's what it looked like under here, under the JB Weld. So I thought that maybe the JB Weld could like cover it and hold it, and it did for a little period of time, but then the JB Weld ended up cracking again. Luckily, like, it's at the top, but whenever I would fill the gas tank, it would actually leak. And that is another reason why I'm doing the FCS fuel cell, is because my gas tank is leaking and I needed a new gas tank anyway, so I figured why not go ahead and do the FCS. So, yep, there you go. 100% honesty there. Don't leave your gas tank leaking. It's very unsafe. So here is the stock fuel tank alongside the FCS 9-gallon fuel cell, and you can see the significance in the size difference. But what I realized is that this section back here on the FCS is higher. I mean, yes, the difference is this is a 10-gallon tank, this is a 9-gallon tank, so you're losing a gallon with this tank, but you can really see the difference in the size, but it's where the gas actually sits. So in this one, you know, you can see that this portion back here is really large. Here, I mean, yes, there's a little hump, but it's not as significant as this. And on the stock fuel tank, this is where the filler and the breather are. This is the filler on the FCS fuel cell, and you have one for a breather and one for the return line. These are the feed lines. So these are going to be going to the fuel pump. In my next video, I'm gonna fully explain all of this, but I kind of just wanted to touch on the fact that with the FCS fuel cell, you don't have an in-tank pump. So you have to run an external pump, which I will be doing. And the one of the pumps that I'm gonna be using, hint hint there, I'm gonna be using more than one, is going to be the Bosch 044, which is a pretty popular pump that a lot of people use as like an inline pump. So on mine, these are -8s, and the return and the breather are -6. When you are ordering one of these fuel cells, you have the option to choose what size you want. This is the sending unit for the fuel level that tells the cluster how much fuel is in the tank. I'm gonna have to convert the wiring to go on here because that is a plug, and this is just a single signal wire. Like I keep hinting, I'm going to be doing more videos, so to be honest, I am not going to be hooking these up today. I really just wanted to test fit it and make sure that it fits up in the slot and make sure that the straps fit properly and everything, and just see how it lines up in there so that I can get an idea of how I'm gonna have to run these lines. I think what I'm gonna do is run 90-degree fittings off of this and then come around this side with the lines. So before I ordered that stuff, I just really wanted to put this up in the car and kind of see how it sits. All right, so obviously I have never done this before, but if I had to guess, I'm thinking that these brackets go like this. I'm thinking that this goes towards the front of the car and this to the rear. I could be wrong, but we will find out. Some of the foam on here so that it doesn't touch against the body of the car. So right now I have the tank held up with a jack, and I'm trying to figure out how the straps are gonna work. I have the 90-degree bend on this side towards the rear of the car. Originally I thought it was supposed to be on the other side towards the front of the car, but there's not enough space to get the bracket to sit right, and I would have to bend the flat side to reach up to the subframe. So this way seems like the best way to make them work on a 96 to 2000 Civic. I'm not sure how they would sit on other makes and models of cars. For this side of the strap, I'm gonna have to drill through the body of the car into the spare tire area. And for the other side, I'm gonna have to somehow bend the strap, and there's a 12mm bolt right there that's actually for a brake cable bracket that I should be able to bolt the strap to. And that's kind of the only way that I'm seeing that it's gonna work. So I bent this bracket. This was actually the flat side, and I bent it like that. There's a bracket here that is for the brake cable that was on this side. This bend can now go on the tank like this, and then this will bolt on using that hole. mount it there in that hole like that, and then once the jack is not on the tank will drop down and be in the bracket like that. That fits fast. This is where the hole comes through. Hole in there.
Wow, Aisha, you're good, man. Measurements, boy.
It does need a little bend in there, but it's there. It is.
Boy, you need to bend, my brother. Watch your eye, them, you know, that don't fall in.
It doesn't fall in my eye.
Wear your safety glasses.
I guess no one.
Need them eyes.
See? See that? Engineering at its finest. So I wanted to point out that after a couple times of trying to figure out the right bend, doing it like this V works better than doing it like this. When you put the V up in the back of the car, it can go higher and pull the tank up. Whereas with this, it was like touching, and so it wasn't able to go up any higher to like bring the tank up to the body of the car. So this is the bend that I ended up using. I'm gonna show you how I bend the straps. It is not the most professional way, so please don't roast me on it. These are all the tools that I have. I don't have a professional bender, so this is how I improvise, and maybe you have the same tools and maybe that's how you'll need to bend them too. So first, I put the strap against the fuel cell and mark at the end of the tank where I'm gonna make the first bend. I just realized this hammer says wear safety goggles.
Only 3 pounds.
Then I put the strap in my vise and use a hammer to bend the strap. So since I want this piece to end up being bent like a V, like this, I want this first bend to be a 45-degree angle. So I'm gonna stop bending it here. And I'm gonna mark this section in the middle and bend it down here to make the V. This is a sheet metal bender. I got this from Harbor Freight. I think that's about it.
Voila. See there.
This is the filler for the FCS fuel cell. This is the filler that goes to the gas cap, like where you put the fuel in. So as you can see, it now is a 90-degree bend. This is the OEM filler hose, and it's more of a 45-degree angle, and you need a 90-degree angle to work with the FCS fuel cell. Also, this OEM hose is made out of rubber, which is not really good for E85. So after doing some research, I found out that silicone hose is resistant to E85. This is actually a radiator hose for an Impala. I needed a 90-degree hose that was long enough on both ends and the inner diameter to be 1.5 inches or 1.5 inches. After searching on the internet for silicone hose, I realized that most radiator hoses are actually 1.5 inches on the inner diameter. So then I started looking at pictures for a 90-degree bent radiator hose, and I came across this Impala hose. This hose was actually the cheapest silicone option. Now all I have to do is cut it to fit. Pretty good to me. All right, so now that I have the situation with that filler hose figured out and I know that that's gonna work, the last thing to do is to wire up the sending unit. So I have to drop the tank, and then I'm going to make like a mini type of harness with a plug in it, so that if I have to drop the tank for any reason, I can just unplug it and not have to like take terminals off and cut wires or anything like that. So I pulled the tank back out of the car, and this is the sending unit that we have to wire up. The sending unit has this one post. What I did is I looked in the Honda manual and I found the wiring schematic for the plug in the car, and the plug in the car has a positive and a negative. So what I figured is that the positive or signal wire should go here, and then I was a little bit confused about the negative. My thought process was like how a fuel pump is, you ground the fuel pump to the hanger. What I was thinking is that you ground it to one of these. So I reached out to FCS and actually asked them about this, and they confirmed that that is what you do. So you put the positive wire to this post, and I will show you which one of the wires that is when we get inside the car. And then you take the negative and remove one of these bolts here and put it under that bolt, and obviously put it back in. I have this plug here. This plug comes with the pins. It is basically like the same kind of quality as the OEM plugs. I have wire here. This is 16 gauge wire. Since this is something that is very simple, you don't need any like over the top gauge of wire. One for the positive, one for the negative. So I'm going to splice into the existing harness in the car, because I don't want to completely cut that plug off, because I mean, you never know, maybe I might go back to a stock fuel tank in the future. So I'll have two plugs, and then I'll put the other plug on the other side, and I'm going to directly connect that to the tank itself, so that if I need to remove the tank, all I have to do is unplug that plug on the inside of the car, and then I can drop the tank. You can just put terminals and just put that on there, but then if you're gonna remove it, then you cannot access this sending unit from inside the car. So basically you would have to like drop the tank down and make sure that the wires are long enough so that when you get the tank on the ground, then you can unscrew this and take the wires off. So that's why I'm gonna make this mini harness with a plug, so that I can unplug it from inside the car before I'm gonna drop the tank down. To figure out the length, I know that when I had the cell up in the car, somewhere about here is where it was visible. And then I know that this part here of this tank possibly touches the top of the body of the car. When I'm putting this up, I don't want to have these wires running like right here. So I'm gonna make it long enough so that it goes from here, run down the side like this, and then come back here. I think about right here. So I'm gonna bend that to mark it, so I will cut it there. As far as terminals to go on the side that is going to be on the fuel cell, I have these. I actually really like these because they are heat shrink. When you put them on and crimp them, you can use a heat gun to basically heat shrink this part, so then it creates like a waterproof seal in there. This blue is for 14 to 16 gauge, just to make sure this is going to go over here and fit. And I guess I should take out one of these to make sure. And yes, it fits, so we're good. So we'll use these. So it's lining up good here, and run along the side, come up here. Now I just have to put this plug on. When you're using these types of pins and you're crimping them, this bottom set of prongs here are meant to go around the insulation of the wire. When you're stripping the wires, you want to make sure that you're not stripping them too long. You want to make sure that when you put it in here, that this bottom set of prongs here are going to go around the insulation part of the wire. That's it for this side of the harness, with the terminals that go on the fuel cell sending unit there, and then the plug. The wire for the plug on the inside of the car doesn't need to be that long because this plug is going to go all the way up inside of the car. So I'm just gonna make this one maybe about like 10 inches long. When you're doing plugs like these, you wanna make sure that when you make one side of the plug and then you make the other side of the plug, that the wires are connecting to each other. So there's positive on this side, negative on this side. For this plug, you wanna make sure that positive is on this side and negative on this side. You don't wanna reverse the wires, put them in, and then go to plug it in and it's the wrong way. Now we have the two plugs and they go together like that. Now we just need to wire these into the car. So I'm gonna start off by basically stripping the wire without actually cutting it. This black wire is the negative wire. And this yellow wire with the black line is the signal wire for the 96 to 2000 Civics. I'm not sure of the color for other makes and models. I'd recommend finding the wiring schematic in the manual of your car. So after I strip the wire, then I'm going to separate the exposed wire to create a slot. Then I'm going to separate the ends of these wires in half and push one of the half of the separated wire through the slot in the wire on the car. Then I twist the two halves together and then twist them around to make sure that they're tightly secured so it won't come loose. And I do the same for the other wire. Then I'm going to tape up each wire. The trick to getting electrical tape to actually stick properly without unraveling is to stretch it while you're putting it on. If you put it on loosely, then yeah, it will unravel and it won't stick properly. And then I'm going to tape all of the wires together to keep them nice and secured. So now we have two plugs. So this one is for the sending unit for the FCS fuel cell, and this is the OEM one. So if I ever decide to put back in an OEM tank, I have the plug. Amazing! So since I had the tank up in the car and took it out, I see that there are some scratches here, which means that this is an area that probably was touching on the body of the car. All of this foam was finished. So I went to Home Depot and I bought this stuff, which is a window seal, and it's basically the same as this. The only difference with this is that it's more dense, which, to be really honest, I actually like this stuff a little bit better because it is more dense. This is like a softer foam, so when you press it, it like squishes down. This one is a little bit more dense where when you push on it, it's harder, but it's not so hard. It's just that I feel that, you know, when this goes against the body of the car, I think this would be better for vibration. I'm sure this will do just perfectly fine. It might just be my OCD just thinking about it. I'm going to put some of this along here in some strips, especially like right here where I can see these scratches. So I think I will put a strip along this edge, a strip here, and I don't know, maybe I'll end up putting a couple more strips because I have that stuff. It was really cheap at Home Depot. I think it was like $4 and something cents. This is what the package looks like in case you get one of these tanks and you want to get some of this stuff. I'll even give you the UPC. Look at that, in case you want to get it. So I ended up putting all of these strips here, and I tried to put this strip over here to protect this in case it was gonna touch the body of the car, but it's not sticking very well. So I think I'll end up getting one of those little caps that go over it, like the little rubber caps. that's what it's looking like. Got the harness, ready to put it back in. Now that I have the tank positioned to put it up in the car, I put the harness on the top of the tank, and now I can pull it through. And now I can just plug it in. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope that it was helpful. I know that it might be helpful to some people because for myself, when I got this fuel cell, I could not find anything out there on the internet, pictures, video, anything of installing one of these FCS fuel cells. I'm hoping that this video is helpful to anyone out there that might get one of these fuel cells and is just kind of wondering how you mount it up. I know that the 5-gallon one is a little bit more simple because the mounting point towards the front of the car is a little bit easier. With the full 9-gallon tank, it's a little bit more difficult to figure out because there is a spot towards the front where there's brake lines and the brake cable. Like I said earlier in the video, I had to flip the straps around in order to get them to work. It's all mounted up now and it's pretty solid. I will be showing you in a future video how I mount up the fuel pump and all of that kind of stuff. Stay tuned for the next videos because they will be more in depth. I'm pretty excited about this new fuel system. You don't want to miss out, so make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure you hit that bell icon so you get notified first when I post the new videos. Also, be sure to support the channel by purchasing merch from my website at www.ladybuiltgarage.com, which will help me to be able to continue making content like this. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace!